Hello and welcome back to Darren and Doing. I'm Will Hester and I'm joined by the brilliant Ben Bowman. Ben, how you doing, mate? This is for the second time, by the way.
Yeah, run it back.
Yeah, and we're sorry this podcast coming out a little bit late, but we recorded earlier and right at the end there was an echo throughout, so we sort of Ben unplugged his mic, and then or something like that, and then by the end of it, the whole pod, we were really happy with it. And it only recorded like the first 10 minutes. So we're back again. But Ben, how was your day today since I last saw you?
It was all right, mate. The Daring and Doing lost files, they will never be recovered. That was maybe arguably the best podcast we ever did, and no one will ever hear it.
Yeah, exactly.
I said something at the end, which I'm quite glad I got cut out, about children crying. But I stand by that point. Football, if an annihilation has to make a child cry, but it cut me off just before and it said, I want to see children. But actually what I wanted to say was about Forest at the weekend is that I want to see children crying. But I'm glad that made it into the, that those files will never be recovered. So no one will be able to hold that against me. But I'm good. It's my last day at work for a week today. So
yeah, nice.
Just did some work. Was on the phone to BT for a few hours, which was fun. Well, not a few hours. That was
sorting out Wi-Fi.
Sorting out Wi-Fi for the new house. By the way, if anyone is doing that, I do not recommend BT. My installation date has gone back about 4 fucking times. So I haven't got Wi-Fi until the 22nd now, which is fun. So if on any of these podcasts over the next few weeks, when I actually move into my new house, my connection is like I'm streaming off a potato, then please bear with me. But it's been all right. There's been a few fair, interesting bits of Spurs stuff this afternoon after we recorded. Actually, I was just saying Ashley Phillips kept a clean sheet for Plymouth, which was good.
Yeah, that boy Vascovic.
Did you see?
Did bits again, apparently.
Yeah, I saw that as well. Did you see? Even Perisic is back playing football.
Before Solomon. Yeah, I saw that.
It's mental.
It's a joke.
It's absolutely mental. Because they've said that Solomon is now, obviously on the podcast earlier, we were talking about the fact that Richarlison's injured and missing the Forest game with his knee. But Solomon's not going to play again for Spurs this season. Perisic did his ACL and has come back. That guy is a machine. He's an absolute monster.
Yeah. Well, I remember Fabrizio Romano saying, like, he's just done his ACL, but he's training hard to be back for the end of the season for Spurs. And I remember being like, bloody hell, mate, take a rest. Like, fucking hell.
Yeah, exactly. Bro, you're 35. Just take it easy.
That's our career ender, and he's back playing football. And then you've got Solomon. Oh, my God. Has there ever been a free transfer so shit? We feel like we've actually lost value on a free transfer, which is ridiculous. I do feel bad for him, but that's been a terrible signing, isn't it? But yeah, a few things happened, and obviously Ange Postecoglou and Son have been voted for manager and player of the month over the last couple of days, and the schedules come out this morning, which basically fucked us over for the end of the season with Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, and then City in it, and the first 3 games really close in, between each other. How are you feeling about that? Because when that come out, there was a bit of a meltdown in a bit of a funny way. Everyone was like, "Oh fucking hell, bloody hell, of course this is happening."
Do you know what? I don't feel that bad about it. I think you got to embrace it. Like, we've turned up in the big games this season. It's not ideal, but unfortunately these things happen sometimes, and I think we just got to get on with it. And also, we could go and beat Arsenal. We could somehow go and beat Chelsea and then just feel like the weakest team possible at Anfield, and we'll be singing You'll Never Walk Alone with them as they lift the title ahead of Arsenal. That's fine by me. We're on the pitch celebrating with them. And then we've got City. They still haven't got the City game rearranged, but that's apparently going to be the week in between the Burnley and Sheffield United game. Did you see the tifo going around on Twitter? Of what our tifo should be for the Man City game. It was like, I'll send it to you on WhatsApp. It was like, someone tweeted the THFC flags account and was like, make this you should put it up. Sorry, I'm taking ages to find this.
Sorry.
Probably won't even be that funny by the time I've actually fucking found it. There we go. You should put it insert image here. But yeah, I think we'll be all right. I think we'll be fine. We're not going to win all the games. We're not going to lose all the games. But I think we'll be fine. I don't think it's as big a deal as it's being made out to be. Like, we're always going to be a little fucked over with the run-in. like I said, we've turned up in these big games. Arsenal have got 4 huge games in the space of 2 weeks before we play them. Like, they're going to be. It could be a game where like the kind of physical and mental toll kind of gets to them, and we could take advantage of that. Chelsea, we never play well there. Liverpool, we always play well but never get a result. Or certainly have done over the last couple of years, where we've gone and should have got something out of both the last couple of games, or we got a draw the time before last. But yeah, I feel all right about it. You could just, this is a good test for Tottenham. We're going to be back in the Champions League hopefully next year, or in European football of some description. We're going to have to get used to the managing those games. I think we'll be all right. I'm not that scared about it. I'm really not.
Yeah, I think in like sort of hindsight, during that sort of period near the end of the season, I think by that time we'll have a bit of a gap between United and fifth place, whoever that may be in fifth place.
Yeah.
And I think by then we'll sort of understand whether we'll be in Europa League or Champions League. So I don't think there'll be a lot of pressure on us in those situations, which may benefit us. And also, I mean, we said this earlier, but West Ham proved that these are the type of games that actually we're probably going to play our worst or drop points, or not play our worst, but be frustrated. Whereas the way City's, Arsenal's, Liverpool's, and Chelsea's, I mean, you saw in the reverse fixtures, the way they set up really benefited us and really brought the best out in us, and the way we could attack, get in the spaces behind and try and capitalise on them coming at us almost as well. So I think these are the type of games where we don't have to be worried. We're a young, fearless team, especially in these games, and you saw that earlier this season. And we took a lot of points, and Chelsea we should have beaten, and probably were on the course to beat them, until obviously the red cards and the shit that happened in that game. But yeah, to be fair, I'm not too fussed. I'm actually kind of looking forward to seeing how we face up against them, because we'll have that grit between our teeth. We'll be the underdogs, and they suit our gameplay. So I'm not too worried. The games I dread is fucking shite games like West Ham, when a team's going to park the bus against you for the 90 minutes. Do you know what I mean?
Sheffield United and Burnley. Sheffield United and Burnley towards the end of the season as well.
Yeah,
those are the ones I'm scared of.
Yeah, and as well, like we'll do a madness against City or Liverpool, and we'll beat them, and then we'll go to Sheffield United thinking we're the dog's bollocks and get turned over with McBurney hat-trick or something. Yeah.
How many times last game of the season where it's like, oh, we've got Champions League, there's no pressure, get battered by a relegated team already. Like, it's happened so many times with Spurs. The Newcastle one was the worst one. Burnley actually was another one where it was when Crouchy got us into the Champions League. The players were obviously on the biggest come down, and we were 2-0 up at half time on the last game of the season. Didn't mean anything. Like, we couldn't have got third. We were just solidified Champions League. Modric scored like a belter, and then we came and lost the second half 4-0, lost 4-2. Like, it was mad. But I don't know if there was another thing this afternoon. I don't know if you saw it. The Ange press conference where he was getting asked about the finances and about Champions League football. Did you see that?
No, mate, I've been at work all day. Sorry, it's bad preparation for me.
This guy's been delivering pizzas to the. Well, you would say bad preparation. We did already record this podcast.
To be
fair, he was basically getting asked from a journalist about Spurs' obviously the financial report that came out on Wednesday, I want to say, detailing the profit and loss basically for the financial year, and how much revenue Spurs have made, etc., etc., etc. Which is interesting. If people haven't read that, they should go and read it, because it's very positive reading from a Spurs point of view in terms of how well we're set up to kind of compete over the next few years. Like, you look at some of the teams who have been charged with points deductions and all that kind of stuff, the mess that they've got themselves into, and Tottenham are absolutely nowhere near that. And Tottenham, I think, have ticked over £500 million in revenue for the first time. We've actually got a higher wage bill than Arsenal now, which I was quite surprised to read. There's also a good article on the BBC which breaks it down for like every single club. There was another point about obviously the fact that non-football events have played a massive part in generating this revenue for Tottenham. Also, the kind of importance of European football, really, in terms of, because obviously the financial year for last year would have taken into account the Champions League prize money that we would have earned. But yeah, it's all positive reading. The only negative thing about it is obviously Levy was getting a lot of stick for giving himself quite a big bonus and a pay rise during that time, which, again, look, it might be controversial. He's entitled to do that, but it does then sting when it comes at a time where the club have increased season ticket prices, which feels unnecessary, and obviously the removing of concession tickets, and there's a whole wider conversation around that. But Andrew was being asked in the press conference basically about how do you think it was just sort of along the lines of like Spurs have so we lost £86 million. But so he was getting asked about that and whether that would impact Tottenham in the transfer market and the plans, also the revenue that we have made, how good a position we're in. And he basically just said, look, the Champions League isn't the be all and end all for us. We're not seeing it as a success. Like, we have already progressed this year compared to last year. The money, the finances, Champions League football doesn't change anything for me. We're going to do what I want to do. Those weren't exact quotes, as you can probably imagine, but it was an interesting debate because the journalist sort of was getting his back up a little bit, and Ange wasn't having any of it. It's a really good kind of
what's the journalist
barometer
saying?
Of where he just called him a mug, called him like an Aussie mug and stuff, and it just wasn't on really. But yeah, it was worth a watch. Like, he was getting his ass back up a little bit about it, and it was great because Ange was just like, look, doesn't change anything for us. We're focused on building a squad that is ready to compete. We've seen, like with Newcastle, for example, that the Champions League has almost harmed them a little bit, and obviously they've been unlucky with injuries. But the money and being in the Champions League hasn't impacted anything for them. It's made them worse. So that's kind of the point that Andrew was trying to make, and obviously he wants to make sure that doesn't happen for Tottenham next year. And it just makes me think like we've got such the right guy to kind of lead us into this kind of second part of this rebuild for next season. He's just superb in the way he kind of brings himself across, and just every single Spurs fan just hangs on to everything he says. It was really interesting. So yeah, go and have a watch of that if you haven't already, because it's a typical kind of Ange humour and a bit of spikiness, which is always good for a Friday afternoon ahead of a weekend's game. He put him in his place. Let's just say that. But it's an interesting point because we've debated on here about the Champions League and Europa League, like what is better for Spurs next season. And I don't think there's an answer to that question, but he raised an interesting point, and his point this whole time is like that's not necessarily success for Tottenham. Like, it's a good marker for where we're at, but the finances and it doesn't change that much for Tottenham.
He's been really
Champions League football isn't the be all and end all. He's been consistent with it.
Exactly, he's been really consistent with that, and you can tell that that's probably been told to the players as well, and you can see that they sort of that will help them just go out and keep doing whatever they're supposed to be doing, whether it's just play football, keep playing your football, and you'll see with the way we play, we will progress, and we'll get better and better each year, and you can see that progression. Even like now, you can see the progression, and. Yeah, I mean, that doesn't make headlines, does it? So you can tell, you know why that journalist is getting like is back up, because saying, yeah, we need Champions League, like we need to be competing, we need Champions, like the shit that Conte would say all the time, Mourinho, Champions League is our title. That's going to make headlines, but that's the worst type of headlines for a squad, a young squad. Do you know what I mean? When Andrew's saying, look, mate, I don't care about Champions League. We're making progress, and I'm happy with what I'm seeing. And wherever we are, we'll finish, and that's where we deserve to finish. And then we're on to next year. That's perfect for a young squad. That's hasn't really lost anything yet, because you if you're constantly putting limits on us, if we don't achieve the small limits like Champions League, the small achievements like Champions League, they'll feel like failures before they're even into the big leagues. Do you know what I mean? Before they're even trying to challenge for titles. So yeah, I love it. It's perfect, and it's perfect for a fan base to sort of install a bit of patience within us, I think. Because let's move on to it now with a West Ham game. You're seeing a lack of patience in the reaction. I didn't see anyone expecting us to beat West Ham at all. I genuinely didn't see one positive sort of prediction. I think everyone was sort of sceptical going into it and knew exactly how West Ham were going to play and knew they were going to try and frustrate us, which they did. But by the reaction on Twitter, especially on social media after the game, I thought we lost. I forgot we drew because all the shit I was reading about how bad certain players are, how like Ange needs to sort of change up a little bit. I know that's like extreme, but I mean, I was seeing it, and I know everyone else was as well. Everyone was seeing out the negativity and sort of the toxicity after the game. Okay, it was flat, it was blunt, and it was stale in the final third. But I think overall it was a fairly decent performance. What do you think of the performance overall, and how was your feelings post match, and in regards to the reaction from some of the fan base?
Yeah, I was in that same camp. Like, we did the podcast on Monday. We both, I think, predicted us to draw. I certainly did in my match preview video. Like, I didn't really think anything different. We always kind of go and struggle there. It's a frustration of a lot of Spurs fans. People don't see West Ham as this amazing side, but they're seventh in the league. Like, they found a way of getting results against the bigger teams at home. I know we shouldn't be kind of using Man United as the yardstick, but they've beaten them there. They've beaten Chelsea there. Arsenal went there and drubbed them 6-0, fair play. But, Arsenal were, at the top of the league at the moment. And that's where we want to be. So we should be going into these games feeling like we can get a result. But West Ham has been a notoriously difficult place to go for us. And in the end, it's not a bad point. Villa got a point there. And then if you look at the results of the last couple of days, Villa getting battered at City, something that we didn't do. Man United have gone to Chelsea. Man United have gone to Chelsea and thrown away a lead. So Tottenham can now go into the weekend with Villa playing tomorrow. I think they've got Brentford. I might be wrong. They'd probably expect to win that. But looking in terms of consolidating at least fifth position, which is more than likely to be Champions League football at this current period in time, Man United have got to go to Liverpool. And then Tottenham have got a fairly favourable game at home to Nottingham Forest, which you can't count your chickens. But Tottenham could end up this weekend 12 points clear of Man United in sixth place. So I know this is easy to say with hindsight after the game, but that's why I was never going to get too carried away with the performance or the result, because yes, there were bad moments of the performance. Our inability to defend from set pieces once again has kind of reared its head and caused us problems, which is really frustrating given how solid our defence actually is, in my opinion. I think we've got one of the best defences in the league when everybody's fit and firing, and it's something to be really excited about going forward. But that's something we need to iron out our game. Yes, we struggle to break down low blocks, but a lot of other teams do. It's not easy. West Ham sitting so deep on the edge of the box, not allowing us the kind of time and space to play. And we were moving the ball continually, trying to pull them apart. But they're a defensively disciplined, good team. They've been that under David Moyes for a long time. It was never going to be easy. I was very pleased with some individual performances. I thought Van der Ven was outstanding, as per, really.
Yeah.
Romero alongside him once again, I think went under the radar a little bit. I thought his composure playing the ball out from the back. Both of them had maybe one or two moments against Antonio where they didn't look incredibly comfortable. Whatever you think of Antonio, he might be a lump and he might be a shithouse, but he's one of the best strikers in the league with his back to goal, and it's bound to cause you problems at some stage. But I thought they dealt with him for the most part very, very well. And I was pretty impressed with the midfield as well. There was positives to take from it. There was negatives to take from it. There was a lot to learn, but it certainly wasn't anywhere near the worst performance we put in the season. But if you go to social media after the game, which is quite often the case now after Spurs don't put in an amazing performance, it's the end of the world. And we're, are we going anywhere? Like, are we as good as we think we are? Like, are these players right for us? Is Ange naive? All this kind of stuff. It's just getting really boring. But yeah, I thought it was a decent performance, and all in all, a fairly decent point. Maybe you could say that we left 3 points out there. I think we probably did, if we're being honest. But you take what you get from it, and I thought it was a decent performance. And yeah, the way that things have panned out since have kind of gone well for Spurs, and a real opportunity to consolidate that fifth Champions League spot on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was blown way out of proportion, the reaction, to considering how we actually played, because there wasn't too much difference with what we've been doing all season. It's just West Ham were doing what their speciality is, and just sitting so deep in the low block, attacking on the counter attack, being really physical, getting the London Stadium behind them, and then capitalising on set pieces. I mean, that's what we expected from West Ham, and we knew it was going to be a really frustrating game. Obviously, we started well with the goal that come out of almost nowhere, almost our first proper attack, and actually our only real attack where we really penetrated the box and got through that low block. But I mean, that was you were saying it earlier. I'm going to nick your point. But like that's like the archetype Postecoglou goal, winger to winger, and we'll get into that a bit later on. But which was great to see. But obviously, our game plan was working to a certain extent, and we were still trying to do our thing despite West Ham's defensive. Being so defensive and so low in their own area. But Yeah, the thing that frustrated me through the game was I think we were just a little bit soft. We were allowing West Ham to sort of beat us physically, and that set piece goal was really poor to give away. It was a really terrible goal
Yeah,
to concede, especially when we know that's what West Ham are trying to do. That's where they're going to score, and yeah, it was really frustrating to see Zuma unmarked just head it in. Well, not even head it in off his back, into the goal, and that was frustrating. And my worry is that we've always been quite known as quite a soft team. I think there's always been an underbelly of being quite soft, or we've had that tag on us for a while, and I don't think I think we need to break away from that. I don't know how we're going to break away from that, because almost there's like a fine line between having that sort of bite and then going over the top, like we saw against Chelsea, where we were way too rash and we were quite
yeah,
dirty, and it showed the players cared, but they were getting overstimulated. But in games like this is a London derby, and West Ham did have our number when it comes to sort of those physical battles. That was the one thing that frustrated me. I think we made it look a bit too easy for them to do, because they didn't really attack too much. But when they did have those chances, like corners, they looked threatening, and that was their one sort of strength that we sort of needed to sort of cut out and snuff that out and prevent that. But we didn't.
yeah.
But apart from that, I don't think it was too much to sort of moan about that performance.
No.
Do you,
No, I agree. I think it's just like people have made their mind up about certain players, and I think they're using kind of these sort of games as almost a bit of a stimulus and almost as what they see kind of evidence to back up points about agendas they've kind of currently seen. We currently got so we've seen that with Kulusevski over recent weeks, Sonny even the last couple of games, or certainly this game in terms of his whether he can play out front, whether he's consistent enough, all these kind of things. And obviously, Richarlison is out for the Nottingham Forest game, so we will see Sonny continue through the middle. There's being critical, and then there's being just kind of downright just ignorant in terms of some of the stuff that we've been seeing laid about certain players, and players that we were lauding for the first half of the season and now are supposedly not good enough to play for our club. I don't know where we kind of got this sense of arrogance from as a fan base to think that someone like Dejan Kulusevski is not good enough to play for Tottenham Hotspur. Obviously, his cameo off the bench wasn't great. The pass that he made at the end, obviously, the thing is, when you do something like that, it's always going to get clipped up, and those sorts of things are going to be held against you. When you've seen Spurs like aggregator accounts tweet it out there being like Kulusevski is absolutely useless, it's just like, what are we doing? Like, what do we not learn anything from the Brennan Johnson situation where he got dogs abuse for months? And the fact to the point where he had to come out and address it and sort of say, look, I'm really glad the fans have stuck by me and all this stuff. Brennan Johnson has turned it round, and I almost think that these sorts of people who have given these players this abuse will say, see, like he needed that bit of extra motivation to realise that this is the standard for Tottenham Hotspur. That's absolute crap. That is absolute crap. And I think we're kind of just building these players up to knock them down. And I think it's a very typical English fan culture that. I don't think it's necessarily a Spurs problem, but we're seeing it in the fan base at the moment. And I think the West Ham game, there was a lot of that. And I'm just getting a bit sick of it. To be fair, Again, there's being critical. I've been critical on this podcast and on my TikTok and stuff about a player like Yves Bissouma over recent weeks because the performances haven't been good enough. And the reason that I'm getting frustrated is because we have seen how good the performances are or can be. And I get people doing that about Kulusevski, but there's a line. There is a line about kind of some of the stuff that's kind of being said about these players. And I do think Wednesday night I did a TikTok live on Wednesday night after the game, after I put my match review out and player ratings and stuff. And I could not believe the overwhelming sense of negativity. I've spoken to a few other people. I spoke to Seb, who obviously we had on the podcast a couple of weeks ago doing the hot takes and the quiz. And he said that his kind of comments and everything, or the stuff that he was seeing on Twitter was the same. And I just think we're kind of creating this like overwhelming, just almost like fishbowl of negativity where you can't get away from it at the moment. And if you're being positive, it's like, yeah, you need to be brought back down to earth. It's like we were all riding this wave at the start of the season. Like where is that faith in this manager and this group of players gone? And I'm not speaking for the majority because everybody, for the most part, everybody's on board with what Ange's doing. There was a lot of chat about a plan B on Wednesday. Like, again, for me, like the plan B is do plan A better, but also have a different dynamic in terms of the personnel on the bench that you can change the game up and change the style of play. It's not about necessarily changing the style of play. It's about giving yourself a giving yourself a focal point and a different option. And Richarlison is clearly not fit at the moment. He's not fit enough to play against Nottingham Forest. He obviously wasn't fit enough to feature significantly against Luton, against West Ham, or against Fulham, because he only came on for 10 minutes in all of those games. Yes, that game was crying out for Richarlison on Tuesday, but don't use it as an option, as a way to kind of dig out the manager and question his kind of philosophy and, is his in-game management good enough? We've seen now Richarlison is not fit to play Nottingham Forest on Sunday at any point in the game. He's not fit to be on the bench. He's not fit to start. So just rein it in a little bit before you start throwing all these stupid comments out there about, it feels like every time Spurs don't win a game, or even if we do win a game, there's some sort of mini crisis going on in certain sections of the fan base. And it's just ridiculous. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And I've just kind of, I've had enough of it, to be fair. I've had enough. Yeah. I'm angry.
See what you're doing to Ben, everyone. Like, fucking rein it in.
Yeah. Come on, guys.
We just want to love our players and have fun. Just be fans.
Yeah. Is that too much to ask? Am I allowed to like a player?
Exactly. No,
we spent the last couple of years being fucking miserable as a fan base. Just we don't need to do that anymore. Everything's all right. Dad's here now. He's back. We've got Postecoglou. He's got these amazing quotes coming out of his arse every single Friday before a game. I'm going to sit and read through them after this. I love a bit of Friday night and quote time when the embargoed section comes out from a press conference.
It's like a
I've already seen some about. Exactly, hook it's my veins. I've already seen some while looking through Twitter just now. Did we sign Van der Ven because we were in the Champions League? No, he wanted to come because he wanted to play for our club.
Exactly.
Just shut up.
And they're the players you want. Yeah. And we're building something special, and we're sort of, there's that sort of that grip of negativity that's holding us back from the last couple of years. And I feel like people have taken the last couple of years and they're still in it. They're still in that sort of negative, dark place. And it's become their personality trait. It's probably what got them so far on Twitter in the first place, being negative and getting them a bit of a following and being angry, because that stands out than being happy. And it gets more of a reaction out of people being angry. And they're still probably holding that from the last couple of years. Just let go. We're in a good place. Come join us. We're happy and we're content and we're satisfied.
It's fun over here.
Yeah,
we're
not
going to bite. We're just going to have a nice discussion about Tottenham and criticise them when they're there to be criticised. But we're not just going to go slag off players for the sake of it.
Exactly.
But I thought we played quite. I thought we played right.
Yeah. That's the thing, though. It does become just agendas, and it's like you want to get an opinion. Like you want your opinion to be right over Spurs winning. Do you know what I mean? It becomes about status and on how much you know ball. So you're almost waiting for Spurs to fail, and it's just fucking frustrating and exhausting. But let's talk about some of their arguments actually. Sort of break down because they did say there's a lack of a plan B under Ange, and my question to you is have they kind of got a point? Because let's twist it. We're obviously at the beginning of a 4-year plan under Postecoglou. How do we improve our game plan in a low block? Because obviously we'll get onto Son after this, but he got a lot of sort of stick and criticism after the game. It was a game for Richie, and I think all of us knew that. But how do you think we'll improve going forward on playing against the team like West Ham that just sit in such a low, compact block?
Yeah, I think there's elements that can be improved on in terms of maybe certain decision making in and around the box, in terms of maybe being a bit of a braver to take a shot, maybe not taking too many touches. But these things can all be refined. The way I see it is that, like I said, I think plan B is just doing plan A better. But it's also about acknowledging the fact that you have to have a point of difference in being able to change things from the bench. And whether that's that focal point striker, or whether you start with a focal point striker and then switch things back up to the way that you see Tottenham playing more regularly, which is with that more dynamic front three. But we all knew it was a game for Richarlison. But like I said, it's clear that Richie's not fully fit.
Yeah.
He's not played any significant minutes in any of these games over the last few weeks, which is frustrating. It's frustrating for him. We want to see him back out there. He's been so important for us this season. And it was a game for him. Sonny really, really struggled. His on-the-ball quality just wasn't quite there. maybe taking too many touches, but he's trying to find angles for himself. He's not that striker that's going to hold the ball up and be physical against these kind of big centre-backs. And yeah, Forest are probably going to sit in and make it difficult. Most teams that are going to want to play Tottenham are going to employ some sort of low block because they know how much we can threaten in behind. They're not going to want to entice Tottenham to be able to do that at all. But Forest will be a little bit more open than West Ham. West Ham, that's kind of their bread and butter. That's what they've made this team on. That's what they do. And they've got two big lumps at centre back that are going to make it tough. And it was a game for Richie. But yeah, again, that was another thing. Like I saw a tweet going around earlier because obviously we all saw McAllister's goal last night, right? Like a worldie to dent Arsenal's title hopes that little bit
so
more.
Good.
Yes. But someone, it was like a big Spurs account, like Blue Tick, was like, oh, if this was a Spurs player on the edge of the box, he's playing this sideways pass to Harvey Elliott. And it's just like, what are we doing? Like, if that falls to James Maddison on the edge of the box in that amount of space, he is fucking hitting it. There's no doubt about that. He is hitting the ball. And people were then using that to say that someone against West Ham, we needed to take shots on the edge of the box. And maybe we did need to do that. There were bits that could be improved on. But they're sitting so deep where there's not that room. It's not going to fall to you with that much space. And there were so many bodies in front of you where it's likely to not go in anyway. We were trying to pass them down. We tried to get in behind. Brennan Johnson did get in behind multiple times. Sometimes the cross wasn't quite there, and that's where you need that focal point to be able to allow him to hit someone like Richarlison in the box. I also thought Timo Werner, like we talked about the goal and kind of the archetypal handball winger to winger goal that we've seen a lot, and we're going to continue to see a lot more. And actually, I think we've seen a lot more since Werner's come to Spurs, to be fair.
Yeah.
And he was a key part in the goal. But I do think the problem with Werner sometimes is that he doesn't quite return that favour to Johnson. And again, like it's not necessarily like the plan B. It's about having these players and just fine-tuning elements of the system that is already there to make us the best possible team. Whether that evolves in the formation over the next few years, who knows? But these players will continue to bed in and continue to gain more confidence in this system. We've seen it so many times. They're able to play in it. It's just certain games are not going to be easy. At the end of the day, all football fans want is for your team to go and score goals. And if a team is negating you from doing that in the way that they play, it's almost like, well, why aren't they playing into our hands? It's like, there's another team in this game as well. And that was West Ham United on Tuesday, who are always going to do that. But yeah, that would be my one criticism of Werner in this kind of system and in this debate around how do we improve as an attacking unit, is that you see Johnson's movement across the front post from the back post to get himself in those goal scoring positions. He's so eager to do it, so keen to get himself right in front of the goal. Whereas Werner always seems to not gamble and hang around at the back post and always wait for the cross rather than make it happen, which is a frustration of mine. But yeah, those things again, Werner will gain more confidence. He'll realise the benefit in doing it. He sees Johnson bagging the goals on the other side and he'll think, I want a bit of that. And I think these things they'll evolve over time. So I think it's just that. I think we just need a little bit more patience. But again, it comes with evolving the squad and buying players that are able to compete and having that depth as well. It's that.
Well, that's the thing. I think the fact that teams are starting to just drop deep against us is a compliment to how much attacking prowess we actually have and how deadly and efficient we can be in attack. But we over time we're just going to refine it and add to it until it is perfect. Again, I think people forget that we're at a beginning of the cycle, and I think it's hard to remember that when you're seeing so many good teams like Liverpool, City, Arsenal. There's a lot more better teams than there probably were over the last couple of years, just because we've seen like a three-way title race where all three teams are probably as good as each other right now, and that's where we want to be. So we're looking at that and we're comparing, but we can't compare. When I look at Liverpool and I look at City and I look at Arsenal, there's a variation of like what they can do in attack. You're seeing constant movement in and around the box, constant triangles, constant squares and circles and all different shapes in and around that final third. Yeah, all kinds of shapes and in and around that final third. And they're constantly moving the defence in and out of position because the defenders don't know who to mark because they're all coming from different angles and just almost just interlapping and it's amazing to watch. But that comes with time. Obviously, we've got our set way of this is how we're going to score because it's probably the most effective way right now at the beginning of the cycle, and we're seeing that a lot. And teams are finding it hard to stop. I mean, West Ham, as good as they are in the low block, they couldn't stop that Brendan Johnson goal because that is the archetype Ange Postecoglou goal. So that's what we're seeing at the moment. But I think after time
Yeah.
it will vary. I think I was getting frustrated at this, and it's not cutting edge analysis, but I was saying, fucking shoot! Like I didn't understand why we weren't shooting more and just taking a pop. But when I look at City, I know it. I was just saying, and I do it. I do it myself. I'm a hypocrite because I'll watch City and be like, fuck, like how can that team defending uh, deal with City? And I compare Spurs to City when I shouldn't do, because City is City. They're treble winners last year, and Spurs where we were last year to even be where we are now is a miracle. But when I was looking at City they'd be playing it around the box really quick, really sharp. And then maybe it would come to Rodri and it won't be working. And that space has opened up because there's loads of players in the box. Defenders are out of position, and Rodri will take a pop shot, and it would stun the defense because they think, oh crap, because now we have to push up out and try and anticipate that long shot. And I was thinking, why weren't we doing that yesterday? Why weren't we taking shots? But you're looking at well, there's a couple of things. Son, I'm not ripping into Son. This isn't his gameplay, but Son wasn't pinning those centre backs back. He was almost lurking around the edge of the box, making a triangle with, I think, either Porro or Bentancur or whoever it was, that third man. But it would be Maddison, Son at the tip of it, and then that third man, and making a triangle on the edge of the box. And I think we were trying to be quite what am I trying to say?
Intricate.
Yeah, tongue twister, yeah. Cheers, Ben. You always say me with these. We were trying to be quite intricate and then pass our way out through these massive lumps of defenders, which isn't going to work against the West Ham. They just snuff it out, and they had so many bodies behind the ball. And I think the reason we weren't shooting is because those shooting opportunities weren't there, because we weren't pinning those players back. It was such a crowded area. But I think, again, that will come in time. I mean, performances like yesterday have made me realise that I do think we need to maybe invest in a striker of that Tony mould. I'm not saying Tony specifically, but that sort of player that's going to be a handful in the box, maybe someone that Valise can turn into eventually. But that sort of handful in the box, aggressive, and a target man almost. And then wingers, we're obviously looking for a 1v1 specialist. They will be so effective. You've seen how even Werner, just by running at a defender straight away, can put them off. They can sort of just make them uneasy and get them out of position. And all of these stuff, it will become sort of an amalgamation of different attacking attributes in our attack, and we'll be able to blow these low blocks away eventually. This is our first season, and sorry, this has been long story fucking long, but you can't compare us right now with the teams that we want to be, because we will get to that.
Yeah,
we're at the very beginning of a process. Yeah,
totally.
that was a bit of a rant. But
no, I totally agree, mate. I think that if you look at Man City as a good example, and again, you're kind of coming back to the point of like, someone just hit it on the edge of the box. You look at Foden's goal the other night, for example. You're thinking, why isn't one of our players just doing that, picking the ball up, bang, top corner? Phil Foden wouldn't have been doing that in the first year or so under Pep Guardiola when he's a youngster coming into the team. And I know we haven't got many players of his age or what his age was at that time first breaking through in the team at the moment. But however old you are, like, you're still inexperienced in that system. Like, that confidence grows over time and your individual quality can come out more and more. I think we've seen it before over the last couple of weeks and maybe there's been questions around why is he subbing off someone like James Maddison, but that shows to me that the system is more important than the individual players at this moment in time. But over time, once we know we know the inevitable quality of some of these players in the team anyway, like Maddison, Son, etc. We've seen the quality, but over time, their quality will be able to shine a lot more because everybody is so the system is so ingrained in everybody's kind of what they're doing, where they're moving on the football pitch. At the moment, it's been a little bit imperfect over the last few months. It looked perfect at the start of the season, but we might get to a point next year where we're looking back at the first 10 games of last season thinking, we thought that was good football. Look what we're doing now. This will continue to evolve and that quality will go up from Spurs. I'm convinced about it. And yeah, you're looking at all these other teams because we were there at the start of the season and we were top of the league and stuff like that. And you're looking at the other teams around us who in this week have scored goals maybe in the way that we haven't been scoring goals. And it's easy to compare, like I was saying earlier, about the McAllister thing and stuff. But it's just why we don't need to do this to ourselves. We don't need to do it. I think the frustrating thing about the low block thing is that you're always thinking in these games, score early. And that's what we did. We did do that. The kind of the first time we went forward, every time we turned on the halfway line and Bentancur or Maddison got his head up in those first 10, 15 minutes, we looked good going forward. Like a doggy was back on it, back to his best. Really nice little triangles down that side. A doggy driving with the ball, Bentancur turning, getting his head up like he did for the goal. And all you're thinking there is get an early goal and shut them up. And, they'll have to come out then. And we did that. And then that's why the set piece goal is so frustrating, because if that doesn't go in, I think we've got a good chance of just going on and winning that 2 or 3-0 or 2 or 3-1. But it is what it is, and you just got to take your medicine and move on to the next game.
Yeah, exactly. One player that did get a lot of stick because of his performance, but again, we've sort of touched on that, saying it's kind of not his fault because it wasn't his game plan, is Son. Do you think he gets the respect he deserves as a striker? Or and because he did have a poor game and he got questioned a lot after the game, and I think a lot of fans sort of it gave them that opportunity to try and be correct and say, look, I said he wasn't a striker.
Yeah.
These are the games that prove that he's not a striker. Here's my thoughts on it. Like, obviously, we've got one of the world's best players playing for Spurs. We're so lucky to all the shite that we've gone through the last 5 years, that he's still our player and he's our leader and he's our captain. And he wants to be here more than ever. And I think it's a beautiful thing, and it's a amazing problem to have, that he can be one of the best strikers in the world and one of the best wingers in the world. We don't have to cause a dilemma or divide opinion and say he should be strictly a winger, he should be strictly a striker. Who cares? I think, like I said, these games are for maybe a more target man striker, but you're seeing games where there's Spurs can counter-attack, where teams come at us, where there's space behind. Son's probably, arguably, the best striker in the world at having space to run into in behind. He is clinical, and we're so lucky to have him. And it's frustrating to see people sort of say, look how, because I mean, you saw how much it meant to him after the game. Like, he was devastated. You could tell the first thing he would have done is criticize his own performance. But yeah, I felt bad for him because it weren't a game for him. He was never going to try and have his back towards goal and wrestle Zuma and Mavropanos, or whatever his name is. And I butchered that. But he was never going to do that.
He played for the Gooners, who cares?
Yeah, shit. But yeah, he was never going to do that. But he got a lot of stick, and I think it was their chance to express that sort of agenda. What do you think? Do you think he gets the respect he deserves?
No, not at all. And I completely agree with what you just said there. It kind of comes back to people's constant kind of search for validation with the points that they're trying to put across, and that they'd rather be right than just enjoy what's going on. Sonny was poor on Tuesday. He was poor. We all knew from the start it wasn't a game for him. Again, like kind of come back to earlier, I think people were right to question Ange at the time whether it was a tactical decision to not bring Richie on. I always felt that it wasn't tactical. I thought that he can't be fit. Ange has changed games for us with his in-game management and his dynamic substitutions that have allowed Tottenham to win games, and his substitutions have really affected it. So he would have brought Richarlison on. I'm convinced he would have brought Richarlison on if he was fully fit, and he's not. So Sonny did struggle through the middle, and the longer the game went on, he just drifted out of it more and more. And you could tell at the end as well, like when we recorded earlier, I said to you, like, when he moved out, when Richarlison did come on, I think in the 82nd minute, when Sonny moved over to the left, he looked shattered. He looked absolutely shattered. And you've got to remember, he's going to be 32 in the summer. And I know Spurs haven't got European football to contend with this season, but the intensity in which we play and the work that he was obviously doing off the ball to try and be the guy that we wanted him to be on Tuesday was obviously there. He looked shattered and he looked gutted at the end of the game because he bleeds Tottenham more than anyone else at the club. Other than the fans, like he is that guy for us. And to see him get disrespected in the way that he so constantly is, I don't think he, forget Tottenham for a minute even, and I know it's not as much of a bugbear of mine, because I think you do see Tottenham fans that legitimately kind of give him criticism and abuse where it's not warranted, but I don't think he gets in the overall Premier League conversation often enough. He's a Premier League great. He's scored over 100 goals. He's got maybe one of the best goal catalogues out of anyone in the Premier League era. He is a superb finisher. He's the best XG overperformer, whether you wank yourself silly over XG or not. Like, he is, like, that categorically makes him the best finisher in the league. Period. Like, he is that guy. And he just doesn't get the respect he deserves, in my opinion. He's a Premier League legend. He is a great of the modern era of football. The commitment that he shows, the loyalty that he's shown to Tottenham Hotspur, everybody would die for him to be a part of their team and their club. Everybody wants a Son Heung-Min. And we've got one, and we don't treat him as well. And again, like I said earlier, I'm not speaking for the majority at all. It's always the silent minority, or the silent minority who shout shout the loudest at the end of the day. And they're the ones that you hear kicking up a fuss, and it's more likely to kind of create that groundswell of unrest. And it is really frustrating. Again, you can just say he was poor and move on. Like, you don't have to then create this whole debate around whether Ange has got a plan B or all this kind of stuff. And like I said, he's a bona fide Premier League legend and a Tottenham Hotspur legend with over 400 appearances for the club. And the fact that Spurs had to delete a tweet that they put out congratulating that achievement from Sonny because of the dog's abuse that was underneath it from people who just think they're clever. Like, so-called fans of this club kind of just saying, "Oh, he's shit, he can't play through the middle," and all this kind of stuff. He can play through the middle because he's done it plenty of times this season and scored 15 league goals.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good return.
Yeah.
Haaland's got, 16? It's good. It's quite good. That's good, isn't it? 23 goal contributions. That's quite good. Like,
I think that's all
it's
right.
just embarrassing. I think that's all right. It's not as good as, you'd rather him have 16, but it's, it's not. But the thing is, with Sonny as well, like, we needed that. We did need that focal point, that target man. It was so obvious. But again, we had him on the bench, but he wasn't fit enough. And that's been put out in the evidence right here, right now, for everybody to see. But also, Sonny, the problem is with Sonny sometimes in those sorts of games, and again, this is a criticism of him, but it's a criticism that also shows how deadly he is with what he likes to do. Because when Spurs get to the byline, Spurs create so many chances from cutbacks. All of the great teams in modern football now create chances from cutback opportunities. Man City have built their success on it, really. Arsenal do it. Tottenham do it. We're right up there in terms of the chance creation for it. That's why Sonny loves peeling back to the penalty area, because he's got a good one-touch finish ability in space. We saw it in the Arsenal away game, how instinctive that finish was. But he just didn't have that space in these kind of games to be able to get that quick shot off. We know he's the sharpest shooter in the league, one of the best finishers from low XG percentage chances. But unfortunately, he was never going to get any of those opportunities with the way he wants to play and the way he feels comfortable in finishing, because the box was just so crowded. And yeah, on a technical level, it was a poor performance as well. It wasn't his night, and coupled then with all those other things as well, it was never going to be one for Sonny. But yeah, I'm bagging him to score on Sunday. I'm backing him. I just, every time someone doubts him, he just shuts him up. So yeah, he's a captain and he's a fucking legend. I absolutely love Sonny.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. He will score against Forest, or he'll score the next week, because he's world class, and we're lucky to have him. So when people I see like, why some Spurs fans think it's all right to sort of let Sonny escape criticism? No, we can all acknowledge he has a bad game, but he's human at the end of the day. Let him have a bad game. Like, you saw him last season, how it affected him, and how he's bounced back this year. Oh, we're so fucking lucky to have him. He's so good, and everyone wants to see him lift the trophy for Spurs. So why get on his back and say shit and create another agenda against our actual best player? I just think, like, if you do that, I said it earlier, you're just a fucking gimp. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you are.
You are a gimp.
You are a fucking gimp. You gimp. The thing is, right, as well, I completely forgot what I was just going to say then.
Well,
you can tell it's 11 o'clock and we've done this podcast already. I had something on my tongue. I was like, and another thing, I'm not that. I remembered what I was going to say was, other fan bases must look at us and think we are mental. Like, we're giving your best player like that grief, but I don't think they do, because I think a lot of other fan bases are the same. I think it's like I sort of alluded to earlier. Like, it is a kind of. It is an epidemic of kind of modern football, that just kind of constant need to be right rather than be happy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, everyone wants to be proven not right because we live in an era of ball knowledge, which is just absolute crap. But yeah, Sonny's a fucking legend, man. And to use a modern football term, he is a goat.
He is a
I
goat.
love the geezer.
He is, yeah. And
Skipper.
the day he lifts the trophy with Spurs, the day that's where life peaks. Before we go on to Forest, because obviously we've got a big game going. A big game against Nuno Espirito Santo, the return of Nuno this weekend. But before we go into that, how did you like the midfield? Because I think Basuma had a much improved game. I think a lot of people sort of recognise that, which is good to see. Bentancur was chosen over Sarr, which I think it's probably because we're expected to have a lot more of the ball, and I think Bentancur just sort of edges Sarr with that ball playing ability. How did you think about Bentancur's? What did you think of Bentancur's performance and Basuma's performance overall? Did you like that balance?
I thought they were both. I did like the balance. Yeah, I loved the balance. I thought it was for the first half in particular. There was some little passing exchanges between those two, or those three with Maddison in there as well, that were really silky, really nice. Again, I don't think any of us necessarily expected Sarr not to play. So it was a bit of a surprise, especially with how we thought West Ham were going to hurt us on the counter-attack. They didn't really threaten in that instance particularly. They did when the game opened up towards the end, but that game became a basketball game in injury time. I don't know what happened there, really. But for the most part, I thought the midfield was really good. I thought Basuma was much better than he had been. Ange said he was superb in his kind of interview after the game. Still not perfect, but much, much better than the last few weeks. A bit like it was like that Villa performance. It was just like it was a noticeable difference, like better than what we've kind of been seeing the few weeks before. He seems to raise it in these bigger games, Basuma, which is great, but also is kind of frustrating to the point where it's just like if you could find that consistency over the course of a season, you would be one of the best number sixes in the league, but we just can't seem to find it from him, which is frustrating. But yeah, Bentancur, that was the best game I think he's had in a few months since he's, when he came back, he had those few games. Obviously, the first time he came back after the ACL, like he was great in that Villa game for 20 minutes and then got kicked all over the place and got substituted. But then when he came back again for those first few games, he was superb. Like I remember the Bournemouth game on New Year's Day where he started completely out of the blue, and it was like, watching him on the football pitch is a pleasure. Bentancur, so silky. For the goal, just like getting his head up, turning, driving, like giving it one touch, like lovely football. Again, not perfect. Gave the ball away sloppily a few times. He probably had 6.5, and Basuma was probably more of a 7.5. But it was good to see him get valuable minutes, and I think he was always going to come off when he got that booking. And I think at that point in the game, maybe we needed Sarr's industry and that energy a little bit more. But I was really pleased with it. I thought Maddison had a good game as well in the sense of his on the ball work. I thought they struggled to pick him up. I thought he floated about the pitch really nicely. Again, just waiting for that end product a little bit more from Maddison. But again, that will come as he keeps kind of getting this match fitness back. You know, you could argue that he's had enough games now to be fully match fit, which I think that's probably fair. But again, there's just something missing from Maddison at the moment. But he will find it, I think, as we go into this crunch point of the season. Again, against those bigger teams that are going to want to come onto us and leave a little bit more space. So, I was happy with it. I was happy with the midfield balance. I was impressed with the performances in there, and I think I'd probably quite like to see it again on Sunday. I love Pat Sarr, and again, you don't want to create this debate of like Sarr's got to play, because again, like we kind of do it to ourselves in a little bit in the sense of we've all been saying I think Sarr has probably been our most important midfielder this season, which I think still stands true. But that doesn't mean that we can't still be really good without him in the team, which I think we can be. I'd probably quite like to see another, because again, that was Basuma and Bentancur's first start together in the Premier League. That's mental. Like, we've got to April the 2nd or whatever it was the other day, and that was the first game they'd started together, and the first game where him, Maddison, and Bentancur had all started in a midfield three together. So I think that's got the potential to be our best midfield three. And again, that's no disrespect to Pat Sarr at all, because I fucking love the kid, but I'd like to see more. I'd like to see more again on Sunday, I think.
Well, that's the thing.
It's left me feeling with that.
Yeah, you want to see more. Always leaving wanting more. That's the thing. I mean, with Forest, we know how Nuno's going to play. We know how Nuno's going to play. We know firsthand. He is also. There's a similarity between Moyes and Nuno, I'd say, in the fact that they do like to sit deep and protect their goal and then hit you on a counter attack. So we will have a lot of the ball. So you would start Bentancur, Bissouma, and Maddison again, would you?
Yeah, I think I would. I think
Yeah.
I would. Like, I think maybe the game. I think maybe Sarr might be a little bit more suited to this game against Forest for sure. I think like obviously we're going to come on and talk about them a bit more, but I thought they posed a real threat on the counter attack against Fulham the other night. That's where their goals kind of came from with Gibbs White and Hudson-Odoi for 2 of the 3. But I do think it's a game where we're going to be expected to have more of the ball for sure. I think Forest will be a little bit more open than West Ham as well, because like as much as they will want to sit in and make it difficult for us, like you saw in the first game we played against Forest, that they will leave the gaps there in behind. They can be as disciplined as they like, but they just don't have that same, they don't have the same 10,000 hours as West Ham of doing it, and the same kind of quality that West Ham have got. So yeah, I think in terms of having a midfielder as well as Maddison sort of dovetail with him and be able to pick the gaps in Bentancur, I think it might be quite valuable against Forest, because I think there will be space.
Yeah, no, I'll go with that. To be honest, I do think we can have a lot of the ball, and Bentancur. I know, yeah, he did lose the ball in a dangerous area against West Ham, but overall, you just do feel a little bit more secure with him in that midfield. That sort of on the ball, that balance. And I love Sarr. Sarr's vital in the games where we know we're not going to have the ball as much, and we will get peppered a lot, because the dirty work he does is unmatched and irreplaceable. So again, I agree with you. If we see Morgan Gibbs White as a threat, if we are worried about him on that transition, Sarr probably should come in. Maybe because he'll cover that ground, he'll eat up the grass, and he'll catch up with Morgan Gibbs White and prevent certain snuff out attacks. I mean, you saw Bentancur when Palace had a bit of a counter attack. Is there a question Sarr would have tackled Eze or covered a bit more ground to tackle Eze? Obviously, Bentancur fouled Eze leading up to the Palace goal. Well, we'll talk about who would you go for, Morgan Gibbs White or Eze later. But yeah, you're dealing with a real threat in Morgan Gibbs White. And Nottingham Forest have the players to hurt us. Who would you say is our most important player in this game going into it? What player is gonna thrive in this sort of tactical setup?
I think James Maddison. I do think, like I said, I think we saw in the first game between Forest and Spurs this season, like I said, as deep as they want to sit, they will leave gaps, and I think that's where someone like Maddison could thrive for sure. So I think Maddison, he's due kind of that big performance. The Forest fans don't like him with the Leicester links as well. He likes scoring against them. And I think you could tell there's a bit of frustration with Maddison in himself at the moment. So I think we're going to see a big performance from Maddison for sure.
Yeah.
What about you?
No, I agree, mate. We need to see it. We need to see Maddison have that grit between his teeth, have that arrogance, have that something to prove. Because again, he has been good. He just hasn't hit the levels that he was earlier this season, and that's expected. I mean, he said that it was his worst ever injury in his career, and I mean, around your ankles. I mean, we've seen it so many times with Harry Kane, how much that can affect you, and you really don't want to sort of suffer that injury again. It's probably playing in the back of his mind, and we probably won't see the best of Maddison till next season. Probably having that a little bit break. Obviously, he's going to play in the Euros as well, so that's hopefully. I mean, that's not good, because you want him to rest. But these are the types of games where he'll have that sort of laddie sort of swagger, that because there's something to prove against like a Nottingham Forest, that bit of history between the two clubs, and that's when he thrives. That's when he plays his best football. So I'm hoping to see that against Forest, and I think he will. I think he will have a really good game, and you know what, I'm going to say he scores. I'm going to say he scores against Forest, but Forest are in financial trouble. And obviously we talked about Spurs' finances, how we've got the benefit of sort of, we can pick a few players around the league from those teams struggling. And obviously Forest may go down. They're in a relegation battle, which is why the game's going to be really hard. Both teams are playing for something. I mean, even if they don't go down, they're going to need to sell their strongest assets. What players stand out for you that would suit the Spurs system if we were to sort of buy a player?
I love Morgan Gibbs-White, but I don't see where he fits in at Spurs because we've got Maddison there already and Kulusevski who can play in that sort of central position. But I do really like him. I mean, there's a part of him just feels a little bit Spurs, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Like
a
it
bit
was sort of similar with Johnson. Like you could sort of see it, like when he was there. I'm a big fan of Murillo, the centre back, as you mentioned as well. I saw a stat earlier that no player in the world who has played more senior minutes for players aged under 21 and under in the last year than Murillo at Forest. So he's kind of got that experience. He's been really, really good. Like, be a great backup to Van der Ven. He's got the racing carry out from the back. That solo run against Palace at the start of the season as well. He nearly scored from his own half.
I don't even know if I saw that.
Oh, it was unreal, like absolutely unreal. Like he basically took it from back to front and did a little ball roll in the penalty area and hit it straight at the keeper. Unbelievable.
Brazilian sort of Brazilian flair coming out.
A bit of Samba, Samba centre. Not Chris Samba, who would Gibbs White. I think it would be Gibbs White. But again, does he get in the team?
Well, that's probably the thing. Not. I mean, Morgan Gibbs-White, profile-wise, for that attacking 8 would probably be unbelievable. But yeah, does he get in? I mean, I wouldn't say he is as good as an Eze, but what Morgan Gibbs-White what he isn't is a luxury player. I think a lot of teams look at him and he's got a lot of tricks in his locker. He wears his heart on his sleeve, but he puts such a shift in. He's such a good presser. And he's aggressive and he wants to win every single 50-50 he's in. And if you're looking at sort of like Spurs, the way we press and how Maddison will join the striker Son Richarlison in that 4-4-2 press, Gibbs-White would be so good at pressing that back line. So I think that position would suit him. But when you're looking at players to come in, you kind of want them either to be versatile, to play on the wing, play attacking midfield, or just be that out and out winger, and maybe let Kulusevski cover 10. I was going to ask, but you sort of answered it already. Who would you rather sign if it was like a cheaper deal for Gibbs-White or Eze for 60 mil? Who would you go for? But I feel like you're still Eze, ain't you?
I think it's still Eze. Yeah, I love him so much. Again, like it doesn't necessarily fit in that well. Like he's probably not maybe the number one priority target that we should be going for, but it just feels right.
Get him in.
Just get him in. He can play on the left, play through the middle. I saw a lot of Palace fans giving him a bit of grief actually after the performance against Bournemouth. He gave the ball away 29 times, and it's like, well, if you don't want him, maybe we should sell him in the summer. It's like, yeah, maybe you should. Maybe you should sell him to a North London rival. That'd be just not Arsenal. Give him to us. Yeah, we'll pay 60 million for him, no problem. But I'll probably still go with Eze just because I think it makes more sense in terms of the versatility.
Who did they play against? Bournemouth, was it? Who did they play against? Sheffield.
Bournemouth, yeah. Bournemouth. Was it Bournemouth? I think it was Bournemouth. They lost. Bournemouth are on a really good run at the moment.
Imagine Daniel Levy turns up to negotiations for Eze and he goes, just look at his stat. Yeah, he lost the ball 29 times against Bournemouth. That's a bit fucking poor, isn't it?
And and you sure you want this guy?
He'd be like,
this guy that you want?
Yeah, we're not paying any more than. I'm not paying 13 quid. He'll probably be like, no. I'm not paying any more than 50 mil to Steve Parish or whatever, and then he'll probably come out with a better deal just off that stat alone. But the thing about, I don't want to talk about Eze again. Fucking hell, I think people are going to start getting worried for Eze's sake the amount of times we talk about him. But I've got a feeling that he probably will sign for us this summer. So I've convinced myself that whether it's right or not, come to Spurs, like he'll be perfect. But if he doesn't, Gibbs-White, I think should be that second on the list. I think he's excellent. I think he's unbelievable, and I think he does have that Spurs flair. And yeah, there are a few Forest players that will give us a hard game, and it will be a game that will really have to be at top of have to be sharp. We'll have to be ready for, and we can't take this for granted just because they're in a relegation battle. I think a lot of the times especially at home, we sort of think we're going to beat these teams, we're going to steamroll them, and they'll come out the blocks with that point to prove, and they really have to play. They have something on the line, they really play for it, and that's when we start struggling because we're already chasing the game when we should be fairly comfortable. So I think in that regards, it will be quite difficult. Sorry. What's your score predictions then for this game? What do you think?
I can see us winning fairly comfortably.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
the thing is, despite we've chatted a lot about Tottenham's defence, and I think the kind of perception from outside that our defence isn't great and all this kind of stuff. Like, we leak so many goals. We probably will concede another goal on Sunday, but I think we'll win. I think we'll win 3-1. I think
3-1.
Maddison on the score sheet, Johnson on the score sheet, giving it the old bow and arrow to the old
celebrating against Soul Club.
Yeah, mugs. No, just be respectful. And Sonny as well. Exactly.
Sonny,
come on, Brennan.
Sonny, yeah.
Come on, BJ.
Yeah, I think Sonny has a point to prove, and when he normally does actually score. Son, after that game, he'll want to put things right, and I think he will. I think Maddison, if he won't score, he'll be influential, and I'm thinking straight back to that sort of Palace game where he grew into the game, and against that low block, that bit of creativity took us over the line, with that almost half volley flick over the top to Romero, who headed it in. It's just like, that's exactly what we need, and I want to see more of that from him against Forest, and I think we will. So I think he'll either score or get a couple of assists. I don't know if Johnson. I mean, I'd love it if Johnson keeps scoring. I feel like it would be ridiculous if he scored like 3 in a row or whatever it is. Well, not 3 in a row, because he didn't score against. He didn't actually score against Luton. Yeah, all these games come thick and fast. 2 assists, yeah. To be fair, I could see maybe a Brennan Johnson goal, but I don't know who else is going to score. But I actually think it'll be 4-1. I'm going to say 4-1. And Nuno, please, you can finally make us proud and bend over for us and let us have this game, please. Because the thing about the meltdown if Nuno beat us, oh my God, if we can beat West Ham away when no one thought we were going to win, imagine if Nuno comes to the lane, fucking pulls Ange's pants down and humiliates us in our own turf. Do you know what I mean? Imagine that.
Nothing much could make me Ange out, but I think that might.
What? Nuno pantsing him?
This guy's just pulling his way just on the side.
Ange's there like holding it, like covering it up.
Yeah. Don't look at me.
Yeah. We see a different side of Ange that day. No, I mean, imagine Nuno just fucking smashes us. It would be horrendous. It would be diabolical. It would be horrible. I wouldn't be able to recover from that. I would be an aggravator on Twitter. That would turn me.
Yeah. You'd see that yellow and purple fucking emojis in my bio after that.
Mate, in the logo, in the Daring and Doing logo. I'd start me a protest.
We're going to turn our backs on them. How many games did Nuno last for Spurs? 9 minutes or whatever. 9 games. We'll turn our backs on 9 minutes. We'll demonstrate.
That's so funny. I mean, it figures with Nuno. Like, really quick before we finish, his legacy at Spurs is such a blip. You almost forget he was the Spurs manager. Legacy. I'm not much of a fucking legacy, is it? But like, you almost forget that he was our manager. It's such a fever dream having Nuno Espirito. One, because we wanted Gattuso before we wanted him, and two, just because that whole spell was just. It was so random and over so quick. Yeah, and it ended with the whole stadium singing, "You don't know what you're doing." And I felt bad for him. And I said it earlier. His Spurs career peaked in his first game. We beat City.
Yeah.
Harry Kane. We were saying, "Oh, are you watching Harry Kane?" No one expected us to beat City with Nuno Espirito Santo. He walked his family around the stadium at the end of the game, almost to be like, "Take this in because it's downhill from here." Like, fucking hell, why did I have to beat City in my first game? It was too good to be true. And then you're thinking, I feel so bad for you, Nuno, as everyone's singing. You don't know what you're doing, because we've sussed him out. Not even like we sussed him out. We knew he weren't going to last. I do feel bad for him. So in a way, I kind of hope he keeps Forest up. Just because there's a part of me that, go on, you don't have to make Spurs fans proud, but you can sort of you can make people proud at least. And keep Forest up. I mean, I don't know.
You can make Darren and Doing proud.
Yeah,
roll over.
Yeah, minutes applause.
Don't pull Angie's trousers down. Yeah, we'll do. If we beat Forest by at least 3 goals on Sunday, we will do a minute's applause on the next podcast for Nuno Espirito Santo.
100%.
And wish Forest all the best for the run-in.
Oh my God!
Because if they lose to us, they're going to need it. They're in that battle.
And obviously the points deductions. I think they're a good team. They're a good team, and they're going to cause us problems.
They shouldn't be down there. They should not be where they are.
No, and that's probably Steve Cooper in it. I mean, I actually think he's a good manager, but it's just that they were in such a bad place when Nunes took over. But yeah, best of luck to him after this game. Please just fucking lose, and please Spurs just win. But I think that's all we got time for today because it's fucking so late. But thanks so much for getting your questions in because we saw some gems in the questions. What we'll do is we'll transfer those questions into the next podcast and we'll use them for them because they were really good. And thank you so much for the participation. Thanks everyone for getting involved so far and listening for one and letting us know what you think. Please let us know what you think because it's amazing. The support we've got so far has been really, really good, really positive and really motivating. Whenever we see a message, it does really motivate us to sort of keep going. It's amazing, sort of the community we've started to build. It's been 100%. Really even
if it is asking whether we should sign a Berriese for the 100th time, we really appreciate the comments.
I bet they're thinking, when they hear us, we talk. I mean, it's like the Eze podcast, isn't it? I bet they're like, for fuck's sake, like one fucking episode without mentioning Eze because he'll play for City next season. And then we'll be talking about Grealish or something. Do you know what I mean? Or more. But I want to talk it into existence. So hopefully it happens. But
yeah, me too. So maybe keep leaving the questions in. Also, we've got after Newcastle, we've got 2 weeks without a game. So maybe we could bank some of those questions and do just a Q&A.
Yeah, we've had a lot of transfer questions, and we do talk about transfers quite a bit. It's such an enjoyable topic to talk about, almost like what if and thinking of our favoured teams in the future and stuff. What we'll probably do is and let us know if you want us to do this, but we'll probably do our own transfer windows, each other's transfer windows, and
that's a good idea.
And let you decide who you'd like to see, and then you can all get involved as well. Let us know who you'd like to sign, realistically. So that could be something we could do in that 2-week break. But honestly, thank you so much. And we really appreciate it. So follow us on Twitter if you haven't already, on Instagram. Where else we mate? Well, obviously follow us on Spotify, Apple, TikTok. Yeah, give us a follow on TikTok. We're going to start doing live videos soon. We're close to that 800 mark. So when we get there, we'll do some more content. We'll give you some more content. And subscribe on YouTube. Honestly, really appreciate that. So thank you. And Ben, where can we find you, mate?
You can find me, Ben Bowman on TikTok, Ben Bowman on Twitter, Ben Bowman on Facebook. No, you can find me on Twitter and TikTok mainly. YouTube channel coming soon as well. I need to sort all that out.
Yeah, that'd be unbelievable.
And make sure on the podcast as well. Give us a like rating on Spotify and Apple as well. And as well, set it to bloody automatic download because if you're on the tube and you're like, oh shit, I can't listen to my favourite podcast, my favourite Spurs podcast, Darren and Doing,
The Eze
the Tottenham
podcast.
Hotspur podcast, the Eze podcast. You think, oh, it's in my downloads. I can listen to it now. What a brilliant podcast to listen to on my commute, or on the way to the stadium, or on the way to your nan's house. Just stick it on automatic download. On the way to scout a Barry Eze at Crystal Palace's next game, listen to the podcast, set it to automatic download, leave us a review as well. I didn't realise you could leave reviews on Spotify. You can see them in the thing, can't you? You can. You can. You can leave a little response. So do that.
Yeah.
Leave us a comment on YouTube as well. Subscribe on YouTube and fucking just do everything we both said. Otherwise,
get involved. Otherwise, you're a little gimp basically. Like the rest of like the aggravators on Twitter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You with your blue tick, you gimp.
Fucking gimp.
Yeah. This has been the Gimp podcast.
Yeah, how many times
please share it with your Gimp
Yeah. We're going to start turning up in Gimp suits. We'll be like, right, here's our reaction to the loss against Nottingham Forest. And now we just got our whips and shit.
Just unzip them.
You won't even know who's who until we start speaking.
No, exactly. Oh, mate.
That's funny. All right, legends. Thanks so much. Cheers, mate. And
cheers,
up
everybody.
The fucking Spurs.
Up the Spurs. Tony Spurs.